For 2013, Honda gave its Civic a series of upgrades that brought it back to the head of the compact segment. Surprisingly, the SI Performance model didn't really get any changes, save a few cosmetic tweaks.
But did it need it? That's what we're here to find out. And to benchmark it, we brought along Honda's best performing front-wheel drive car, the iconic Integra Type R.
Even stylistically, there really wasn't much that changed about the SI model from the 2012 model year through the 2013 refresh. Still, the standard stuff's in place to keep it apart from the rest of the Civic line. Of course, that includes the SI badges, a modest spoiler on the deck lid, and the 17-inch wheels which come standard. Now, standard equipment also includes all-season tires, which is what our car has, although you can also check the option box to have high-performance summer tires wrapping those wheels.
That's great, Luke, but when I was young, the Type R was new, and Honda went to far greater lengths to differentiate its styling from standard Integras. For starters, the Type R sits over an inch lower than a regular Integra, and it's also worth noting that this car is equipped with the JDM 16-inch wheels and slightly wider tires than came standard here in the US. There's also that huge rear spoiler that screams Type R almost as loudly as those big side graphics do. There's also a front chin spoiler, different side skirts, and a redesigned rear bumper.
All right, so I'll give it to Dave that the Type R definitely has styling points on the outside that give it the edge, but there are a few things on the inside for the Civic Si that I think sway things in my favor. First of all, you get tech features like navigation, Bluetooth, and heated seats that in the winter are going to make the ride much nicer. And more importantly, for 2013, Honda revised the interior styling for the Civic line entirely with the Si included. You keep the same general shape, but soft touch materials and this gorgeous carbon fiber inlay over around the radio just make the car feel a lot newer and more premium feeling than the 2012 model.
All right, kids, welcome to 1998, when I had hair and VTEC ruled the streets. This is the interior of the Integra Type R, and, well, there's not a lot to say about it because there's really not a lot of content. It's got a steering wheel and a shifter and pedals, and they're all in the right places, and you sit nice and low so you feel connected to the car, but you know, there's nothing else really here. The dash is nice and low, so you've got a great view out the car. But other than that, it's you know, a CD player and AM FM radio, and that's pretty much it. But you know what, that's all you need in a car like this. This is a pure driving car, and you know, you listen to that engine hit VTEC and it really is music to your ears. It's that much fun to drive.
Before we get any further, let's take a technical look at the 2013 Honda Civic Si. The car is powered by a 2.4-liter four-cylinder engine that makes 201 horsepower and 170 foot-pounds of torque. That power is transferred to the front wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission exclusively. The car also uses a limited slip differential and has a 2,966-pound curb weight as equipped. The EPA estimates the Civic Si should get 22 miles per gallon in the city, 31 on the highway, or 25 overall.
Meanwhile, the Integra Type R's motor is down more than half a liter of displacement. Despite that, it only makes 6 horsepower fewer than the Civic, although the smaller engine does offer 40 fewer foot-pounds of torque. Typical of a car from the 90s, you'll find a 5-speed manual rather than a 6, though it does also have a Torsen limited slip differential. It's also roughly 350 pounds lighter than the Civic, and believe it or not, the Integra actually boasts better mileage estimates.
Okay, so we know that the Civic Si isn't nearly as hardcore as the Integra Type R, but does that really matter? Well, it's got the 2.4-liter engine, and more importantly, that delivers a lot more torque. So around town, it should, at least in theory, feel a lot more entertaining to drive. On the track, is that the same? Well, surprisingly, no. I was actually expecting this car to feel punchier, and on a short, turn-heavy track like the one we're on today, you'd expect it to have the pull coming through the corners that you want in a front-wheel drive vehicle. And it does certainly have more torque than the Type R, but at the same time, it doesn't give you the pull you might expect. Now, I don't say that meaning that this car isn't fun to drive. In fact, it's anything but. And one of the things that makes it that way is the fact that Honda still builds an amazing gearbox. Shifting feels precise, and you cut right in from one gear to another, knowing exactly where you're going, and it's forgiving. The clutch is light, but it eats up the revs, and as soon as you downshift, it jumps right there to meet you. It's nimble, and it's a blast. Now, as nimble as it is, there's still a surprising amount of body roll when you come into a heavy turn, and that stands in stark contrast to something like the Integra, where it really just does feel a lot happier cutting into the corners. It's about 400 pounds heavier than the Integra, and well, you get a lot with that, but you also lose some stuff, so it's not quite as track happy, and it's not quite as ready to be pitched into corners, but at the same time, you get some interesting features. You get a power meter that shows you exactly how much horsepower you're using. You also get a little meter to show you when you're in VTEC, which for any Honda fan is going to be a lot of fun. And finally, there's a light to show you when to shift. So really, there are a lot of entertaining little tech features that, while not totally essential, make the experience a lot more fun. And you know, it's worth noting that one of the reasons this car is so much heavier, aside from more airbags and all the things you'd expect with a modern car, Honda also did a lot of work to reduce the NVH in the Civic, and what that really gives you is a car that's more livable on a daily basis. Even when you're revving it out, it just feels quiet and a little bit more comfortable.
All right, so here we are in the 1998 Integra Type R, the hand-built V18 C5 motor, all of 1.8 liters of displacement. It's a pretty special little engine though. It had the highest horsepower per liter of any engine in production in its day. 195 horsepower out of 1.8 liters. That's more than 100 horsepower a liter. So, you know, do the math, and the Civic Si should have, 240 horsepower or more if they were building the motor in a similar way. So that gives you a bit of an idea of how special this car is, but really there's a lot more to it than that. I know Luke really likes the Civic Si for all of its technology. It's got Bluetooth this and GPS that, but this car was built in a different era. I mean, it was made for young enthusiasts who really wanted a car that was fun to drive. It wasn't about connectivity, it wasn't about technology, it was just about pure driving enjoyment. There's no sound deadening in here, so you can really hear the engine, you can hear the tires screech. You just feel so connected to the road. It's got a firm suspension, there's no body roll. This thing will drift. I mean, you can actually get the rear end of this car to kick out just with a little bit of drop throttle, and good luck trying to do that in the Civic. You've got to keep in mind though that this is a 15-year-old car, so there are bits and pieces on it that are getting a little tired. The gearbox isn't that super slick shifting feel that the SI has. It's only got 5 gears, so you spend a little bit more time in each of them. The bushings are all getting a little squishy, but my God, it's still a precision instrument compared to the Civic. I mean, it just has that immediate turn-in response, awesome throttle response too. I mean, it just wants to go. One of the important things to keep in mind is that this is a Type R, it's not an SI, so it's not really an apples to apples comparison. And some of the things that make this Type R really unique is that not only does it have that hand-built engine, but it's also been lightened quite a lot. They've gone to some real extremes to save weight. The windshield is thinner glass. The seat rail, they've taken a little bits of metal out of that. There's no sound deadening in it. Even the floor mats are thinner than standard floor mats. That's how obsessive Honda was when they built this car. And I think that really tells you a lot about how Honda in the 90s, when they were building cars like this, were really an engineering driven company. They were aspiring to build great performance cars, and this was really the pinnacle of that in a lot of ways. The SI feels much more like a commuter car that's been given a little bit of extra power and given a little bit of extra content, but it doesn't feel like the razor sharp motorsports history that this car has.
Lap times for the two cars matched our predictions, with the 2013 Civic Si posting a 128.9, bested by the 15-year-old Integra Type R with a 127. There's one more thing that we've got to mention, the price. Now, the Civic Si, as option, costs $24,805, and believe it or not, when you wanted to buy an Integra Type R, it costs a little bit more than 25 grand at the dealer.
That's true, Luke, but you've got to keep in mind that the Type R was a very ambitious project in its day, and you did get a lot of car for the money. From its hand-ported engine to its finely tuned suspension, the Type R really was a very focused engineering project and was really driven by performance first and cost second.
Fair enough, Dave, but I think we can both agree that the 2013 Civic Si is nothing if not a respectable entrant into the segment that could use a little bit of improvement.
Agreed, but do we want them to build another Type R?
Oh, absolutely.